Thank you, Chair, for having us today and allow us to testify on this bill. And I want to assure my colleagues here on this committee, I appreciate the effort to incorporate the ideas that Assemblywoman Scharfenberger and I have put into our work, which does come directly from the law enforcement community. I have to share with you, as you know, I'm kind of new around here. And we've been hearing from a number of our chiefs about this issue and saying, like, what can we do? Like, that's one of my best opening lines when I do speak with someone. What can we do for you? Give me the information. I'm not the expert. I'm not out there driving. But earlier this year, it was really made clear to us by the law enforcement in our community, and not just Monmouth County. My reach does extend outside of Monmouth County due to my legal background as well. And the same information kept coming back to us. We need to address this car theft issue. It's getting bad, and we don't see it getting any better, and we need your help. So we worked very closely with law enforcement in drafting some legislation, and I'm glad to hear that you all think some of the legislation we started drafting is helpful and will be heard today. So thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on some of these issues. But I do want to talk to you maybe about the car theft issue, and we talked today about algorithms. Assemblyman Pearson brought up some good questions to really address that issue, and I want to kind of bring it home to you so you understand that this algorithm is not working in a way to really address it. And that's why I think statutory legislative relief is necessary so that that algorithm can appropriately grade these issues so we don't have this issue that we're addressing. I can tell you, basically, Chairman, we would get texts and calls on a daily basis this summer. I assure you, and I think they'll accept it, it's called the Peninsula Car Theft Facebook page, which deals with the areas of like Red Bank, Middletown, the peninsula would be Fairhaven, Rumson, Monmouth Beach. I'm going around the peninsula here for you. And because that's where we're seeing it. I'm sure you're all aware that Governor Murphy's neighbors suffered an almost attempted car theft just in September. You would think that would be the safest block we would have. Jerry and I, we're his representatives. You would think that would be the safest block in New Jersey. I'm here to say it's not. Just in September, there was an attempted car theft there. The cars were in the garage. It was a Land Rover. And this is what they do, and this is what law enforcement tells us. They go out and they scope. There's these communities. They find out. They follow people home. There was a tracking bill that we all just passed just recently that dealt with that issue. Sometimes they would watch the people go from their homes to the shopping center and then steal the car, because they would put a tracking device on it in the middle of the night. We would see that because of these Ring cameras and whatnot. To date, I still haven't gotten a Ring camera, but everyone still has them. And they would follow them and steal the car when these people are running in the store from the strip malls or whatnot. So that's what happened. Here, on the same block where Governor Murphy lives, his neighbors, they tried to break into his garage. And they probably would have been successful, except for the fact the neighbor, to Assemblyman Scharfenberger's point, everyone's on alert now in our communities. And a neighbor called that into the Middletown Police Department. They got out there. And they were able to trace what happened there and the description of those offenders to 2 other attempted car thefts in Middletown. This is an everyday occurrence. I live in Homedale. We get constant reminders in the morning, and I'm telling you, it's during school hours, and that's what concerns me the most. I have one young driver and soon to be a second young driver in my car, in my house. And they're getting in their cars, at 6:30, between 6:30 and 7 o'clock in the morning to drive to school. That's when these things are happening. That's when people are going onto our streets, into our garages, and taking these cars. That's what is happening in our communities. It's not just Homedale, it's everywhere. I know it's just not District 13. It's up where Jay is, it's in different parts of Central Jersey, it's everywhere. And these car theft rings, they pop around the state like that. And despite all the efforts and despite all the resources provided to our law enforcement personnel, it's still happening. And let me tell you about this one incident. It doesn't directly address the algorithm, but it made me start thinking.
Well, I'm sorry. I've got to bring you back on point. Let's focus on your carjacking bill, because what your bill does, it protects your children who are driving to school to keep them from being carjacked. So
Correct.
Can we focus on that?
Yes, and I want you to hear about the anxiety I had on October 16th. When I was up at West Point with one daughter looking at colleges, while my other 2 daughters, the driver, she's now 18-year-old, and my 13-year-old are at home alone while my husband's we're up in West Point. So we're in a different state, we're far away, and you get the alert. It was in the middle, it was on a Saturday at 3 p.m., and there was an accident on the parkway because there was a bunch of people in the car that just stole a car. They were being chased. They got off the side of the road. Hospital was put in lockdown. The town of Homedale is basically in lockdown because now you have all these people running through their town. So it wasn't that there was a car theft in Homedale. That's where it was thwarted, and now you have people running through our town. And I'm not in the state to deal with it. And I do have a young driver out who wants to drive to work at that hour. And this is the anxiety I personally feel, and it's the anxiety my constituents feel. I have other neighbors who in the middle of the night when they're home, we have a community, we talked about people taking it on their own, they have their Facebook pages. In communities in our district, there's people hiring security guards for their blocks because they don't want this happening. There's this one neighborhood that gets hit all the time in one of our districts, to the point that they're throwing bricks through their windows to get access into their locked houses, their locked garages. It happens so frequently. And so the bills that I drafted, I did not draft, and this bill that we talked about today was drafted to address the anxieties but also the real issue. This isn't a bill that was addressed or drafted out of fear. It was a bill that was drafted based on informed information I got from law enforcement. People like Rob Nixon, people like the Sheriff Golden. You know, he can tell us, and in this situation, the one I told you about, they eventually caught the one person. That person was definitely a repeat offender. He was held for 2 weeks but was released, despite the fact that he had no less than 5 or 6 charges on that one incident, which include resisting arrest, flight of a motor vehicle, like this bill's talking about, and that's could cause the risk of injury. He also had
Assemblywoman, you are preaching to the choir.
Okay.
Everyone up here agrees car theft is a big issue, and that's why we're looking at these bills today. I agree with you 100%. And I've already stated multiple times that I also agree with you that we should take a look at bail reform and people going to jail and getting back out. Because I still live in Camden. And you know what? Most of the criminals in my area, when they get out of jail, you know where they're going? Back to my neighborhood.
Right.
So I feel you. I get it. I 100%.
So
but please, if you could just...
Well, to the point, that's one incident. That's one issue that arises because we might address this. We could pass this bill, and I appreciate the passage of the bill, but it's not going to address the problem we're not addressing car theft by doing this one bill. We have to do we have to look at it a larger point.
We're doing
and I want to assure,
we're doing 4 bills right now, and we're not done. We will also continue to work together.
Yeah, and
to address the issue. So
and that's why I encourage
I don't want you to feel that we're just ignoring the issue, and I want you to understand that we are working on it. So please.
And that's why I want to assure you, because you're all here, and I'm so encouraged by your interest and what you're all saying today to encourage, but I know there's more of us, there's more of you, and we meet. That's why I want to make sure we make this record clear. This is a problem. And we're not going to address it by piecemeal. We got to work together. And I want to assure you that the bills that I put together, the package, was done. It wasn't based on Vicky Flynn's own viewpoint on things. It was done based on information I received from law enforcement as to how can we really get to the root cause of this issue, address it, and move forward. And that's why I would encourage you all to please look at, I'm appreciative of the support of this bill, but we need to take it the next step forward to really address the root cause here. Because here's the other piece we haven't really talked about. There's 2, and this is what our constituents do. Number 1, we're also always worried, and this is what I hear from so many people when these incidents happen. If we don't do something, what are we going to wait for? Till something really bad happens? Like we did have in Fairhaven, there was a theft in Rumson, and they drove through Fairhaven. They hit a guy driving his bike at 6:30 in the morning. I don't want us waiting for that incident to happen.
I understand, and you're right. It is a problem, which is why we are starting to attack that problem right now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.